Alright, back with you on the Rich Van Tassel channel. Got new digs for you all. I know it's not, the most professional thing, but still getting you the videos, so we're gonna go into it. The games from yesterday. We also have the Joe Philbin firing, just came across the newswire now. We'll just discuss that in the Miami game when we go over that. That is the first game we're doing. It was the Jets and the Dolphins in London. I didn't even realize that when I did the video the other day, so I apologize in that regard. I just had the Jets as the road team in Miami. Starting with the Jets, Ryan Fitzpatrick, 16 to 29, 218 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Again, 16 to 29 is not a great completion percentage. Did have 13 incompletions to his 16 completions. So the Jets are 3-1. We know my opinions on Ryan Fitzpatrick. I still think Geno Smith is the better option. You are 3-1. I'd take the 3 wins and run, but as long as the Jets keep winning, Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to keep playing. As a Jet fan, that would concern me. I think Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to do you in at the end, but they are winning these games. Chris Ivory was very impressive yesterday. 29 carries, 166 yards, 5.7 yards per carry, and a touchdown. Ryan Fitzpatrick also ran for 34 yards, so that was good. For receiving, Brandon Marshall looking to make up and atone for that horrible turnover last week. He had 7 receptions for 128 yards. Really, their best receiver, obviously their best receiver, but really the only one of any serious. No, Eric Decker was 4 for 46. Did have a touchdown. Defensively, they did have 3 sacks, and Darrelle Revis had an interception as well as Marcus Williams. So Darrelle Revis did play, and he did play well. Obviously, Ryan Tannehill tested him. Now we go to Miami. Quick thought on Joe Philbin. Doesn't surprise me that he's fired. I don't know if everything is his fault, but you had the Richie Incognito situation a couple years ago. I don't even know if he has control of that locker room, so to speak. The big problem is though is Ryan Tannehill, 19 of 44, 198 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. That's 25 incompletions on 44 pass attempts. That's just not good enough. I know Ryan Tannehill was all this, the guy when he came in, such a high draft pick. Everyone, there are people who had questions about him. Oh no, he's just so confident though. He's so sure of himself when he comes into a room. That's great, and that probably made him a lot of money and made him a high draft pick. But again, it goes to the topic of everyone thinks that confidence is just everything. Well, confidence doesn't, I can be confident in everything. If I can't do it though, then it doesn't matter. And Ryan Tannehill can't do it. He is not the top quality quarterback everyone thinks he is. It's really as simple as that. They're not running the ball. They're not doing him any favors. Jarvis Landry, 2 carries, 29 yards. Lamar Miller, 7 for 26, altogether 11 for 59. That is 5.4 yards per carry. I don't know where the score got so bad. I'll try to see if I can find that here. That Miami got so down. I didn't miss this game. I had things to do in the morning, so I couldn't get up that early for the London game. But you look at it. Why are they throwing the ball this much and not running it, especially when you're running the ball at 5.4 yards per clip? Kenny Stills 5 receptions for 81 yards. So was everything Joe Philbin's fault? No, I think a lot of it has to fall on Ryan Tannehill, and I think people didn't temper their expectations with this guy. Again, we talked about it. That was the big thing. That's why he moved up in the draft. I mean, this guy was playing wide receiver at one point in college. Now, I'm not saying that can't make a guy a good quarterback. No, that's not my point. I'm saying though, this guy just shot up the draft board because they didn't get a chance to pick Andrew Luck, so they had to get a quarterback, and then decided that they were gonna make it. Couldn't get RG3 as well. They decided they were going to make it Ryan Tannehill. And, again, all the talk was, well, he's just so sure of himself. He's got such the right attitude and everything. Great. He's faking it. Okay? That's as simple as that. He's coming in and he knows that people buy in the confidence. So he comes in and he's confident about everything. Sure, that's great. That doesn't make him a professional quarterback, though, folks. So that's that. Joe Philbin gone. The defense is not, is really letting him down. And Ndamukong Suh kicked somebody. I didn't see the clip. I'll have to see it again. We know he has a history of that, though. The Matt Schaub one, I truly don't think was intentional. But look for a suspension to come his way. No sacks at all for Miami. Now, the Jets do have a good offensive line, so I'm sure that contributed to it as well. But it is what it is for Miami. They'll look to go forward. Haven't seen who they're replacing with. Obviously, it's going to be a guy on an interim basis. but they are only 1-3. You can still turn your season around. So if you're gonna fire a coach, you do it now and get it out of the way. So that's that for yesterday's game between the Jets and the Dolphins. Our next one, I believe, was the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Indianapolis Colts. Just got to bring that up for you real quick. Andrew Luck did not play in this game. I thought that would contribute to Jacksonville winning the game had he not. The Colts were able to hold on and win 16-13. Jacksonville, we'll start with them. Blake Bortles, 22 incompletions on 50 passes, so he was 28 of 50. Like to see him be better than that. But did have a touchdown, didn't turn the ball over. And TJ Yeldon, we discussed when we did the game previews on Friday, he was going to have to be very good. He was 22 carries, 105 yards. It's almost 5 yards per carry. Allen Hurns continues to impress as the wide receiver, 11 receptions, 116 yards. Allen Robinson, 4 for 80. But they did throw the ball 15 times and have 22 incompletions. Now, when you're scoring 13 points and you're throwing the ball 50 times, something's wrong there. You know, so they got to figure it out. They did lose. I'm sorry, they did not lose any fumbles, so they didn't have any turnovers. We go to Indianapolis. Matt Hasselbeck was 30 of 47 for 282 yards, a touchdown interception. Frank Gore 17 for 53. So even without Andrew Luck on the field, you see that Indianapolis is still very much committed to throwing the ball, and that's where the turnovers come in. They're back to 2-2, so it should be all right for them. That's how they play, and that's what they're gonna do. Kobe Fleener, 9 receptions, 83 yards. Dante Moncrief, 6 for 75. T.Y. Hilton, 7 for 67. So the passing game was good. They did lose 2 fumbles. So they were -2 in the turnover department and only 1 sack. You usually don't win games when you do that, but Jacksonville, again, the improvement is obviously being shown in, I don't want to say small steps, it's just not coming all together at once. They're showing improvement in one area and then not showing the improvement in the next. Or the improvement they showed the week before, they're not showing it again the next week. So it's just not coming along for Jacksonville as quickly as I had expected. I mean, I didn't expect them to do much, but I figured it would just be more of a consistent, gradual approach. Again, we're talking it's more just inconsistent all over the place. They'll figure it out though. They have to keep moving forward, and that's what they'll do from there. But now you've got Indianapolis back to 2-2, so everything is right in the world for the Colts as of right now. Next up, the Giants beat the Buffalo Bills 24-10. It's a very sloppy game for Buffalo. A lot of penalties in this game, a lot of drop passes and everything. We'll start with the Giants first. Eli Manning, 20 of 35, 212 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Rashad Jennings did have a big pass reception for a touchdown that really sealed the game. He was 9 carries for 38 yards, which is 4.2 yards per carry. I don't know why they didn't stick with the run more. He's over 4 yards per carry. And they had the lead for most of this game. Andre Williams, 11 for 35. Altogether, 28 of 92. So they did stick with the running more by committee, it looks like. However, they didn't run the ball too efficiently, so that's probably why they went away from it. But they got the win nonetheless. Odell Beckham Jr., 5 receptions for 38 yards, so it does look like Stephon Gilmore did come to play in that game. Rashad Jennings had that one big catch for the touchdown that really sealed it. 2 sacks and an interception that did lead the points for the Giants. For Buffalo, we discussed that they were devoid of weapons in this game. No Sammy Watkins. Tyrod Taylor, 28 of 42, 274 yards, a touchdown and interception. I thought he played well considering he didn't have weapons. He had a long touchdown run. It showed his athleticism. That was taken back by a holding penalty. Guy has good touch on the ball. I still really like Tyrod Taylor and like what he's been doing this season. Running the ball, not very good at all. Carlos Williams, 18 for 40. Tyrod Taylor had 6 for 15. Obviously, that long touchdown that was taken back. Altogether, 24 for 55, 2.3 yards per carry. They were down a lot of the game, so they had to abandon the run. Charles Clay, their tight end, was the leading receiver, 9 from 111. Again, no Sammy Watkins, no LaShawn McCoy as well, so that affected the running game. Buffalo was sloppy. They were sloppy in that New England game as well. They're going to have to correct those issues when they're moving forward this year. But I didn't expect much from Buffalo without Watkins and McCoy on the field, and sure enough, the Giants got the win. Both of those teams are now 2-2. The Panthers against the Buccaneers. Panthers got the win in this game, as I expected they would. So I'm just bringing up the stats here. Starting with the Panthers, Cam Newton really didn't have that good of a game. 11 for 22, 124 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was the leading rusher with 51 yards on 12 carries. Jonathan Stewart had 50 yards on 10 carries. Altogether, they ran for 33 carries and 133 yards. That's right at 4 yards per carry. I don't know where they got 37 points from looking at these stats. They did have a touchdown return for an interception return for a touchdown, excuse me. So there's 7 of the points right there. Still, I don't know where the other 30 is coming from. Brenton Burson was their top receiver, 4 for 54. So pedestrian offensive day. Cam Newton did lose a fumble. Defensively, they had 2 sacks. They had 4 interceptions, so that's obviously where the points are coming from. Jameis Winston's really got to cut that down. We're going to Tampa Bay in just a minute. Yeah, so that's it for the Carolina side of the ball. Now Tampa Bay. Jameis Winston, 26 of 43, 287 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Got to be better. A lot of these, I saw the highlight of one of them, the Josh Norman interception for a touchdown. Clearly baited the rookie in. He didn't know what he was seeing. It happens. He's just got to continue to improve in that regard. No need to panic because this is what happens to rookie quarterbacks, especially on teams that are not very good. He's going to improve. He's going to learn the game more as he plays. Doug Martin, 20 for 106, 5.3 yards per carry and a touchdown. Vincent Jackson, 10 for 147. Mike Evans, only 3 for 32. He's been a little inconsistent this year. I was expecting more from him. They lost the fumble, so that looks like 5 turnovers altogether. Only 2 sacks. Yeah, so they were -5 in the turnover differential. That's where Carolina's 37 points came from. So frankly, I'm a little surprised it was only a 14-point game when you turn the ball over that much. Carolina's 4-0. Cam Newton, his numbers are not impressive, but he's certainly guiding this team to win. Cam Newton knows how to win. That's what he does. So Carolina is going to keep going as long as they have Cam Newton on the field. Now they've had a pretty tough, soft schedule this year. We'll see what happens when they get into the meat of it. And Tampa Bay, that win against New Orleans is really looking like an aberration. Tough to know what's going on between those two teams. So we'll see where they go from here. But Jameis Winston obviously has to cut down on the turnovers. The Redskins and the Eagles. Washington won this game. I picked Philly. I said it'd be sloppy. I said I trusted. How do I phrase this? My level of trust was more with Sam Bradford than it was with Kirk Cousins, though I did not have much trust for both of them. The final was 23-20. Washington is now 2-2. Philadelphia is 1-3. Sam Bradford, 15 of 28, 273 yards, 3 touchdowns, and did not turn the ball over. So you look at the touchdowns to interceptions, it's good. 9.6 yards per completion for attempt is good. However, 13 incompletions is not good. DeMarco Murray, 8 carries for 36 yards. Obviously, he's going to need more touches. He wants more touches. There were some comments about that after the game. You knew that's what was going to happen in Philadelphia. They like to distribute it. I thought that was one of the reasons why he decided to leave Dallas was he felt he was getting too many carries. Ryan Matthews, 5 for 20. So altogether 18 for 87, which is almost 5 yards per carry. And 28 pass attempts is not an exorbitant amount. So it's tough to know with Philadelphia. Again, Chip Kelly is a guy who thinks he's the smartest man in the room and he's going to do what he wants. And it doesn't matter when it's not successful, he's still going to do it. It's really as simple as that. He's too proud of a guy to stop. So that's what it is. Riley Cooper was 2 receptions, 72 yards. That's 36 yards per. and a touchdown. Nelson Aguilar, 3 for 64, showing why he's a speed guy. I mean, looking at some of these numbers, Miles Austin, 2 for 51. Jordan Matthews, 3 for 50. I mean, that's for Riley Cooper. We're going to go with the average for their reception, the yards per reception. Riley Cooper was 36. Nelson Aguilar, 21.3. Miles Austin, 25.5. Jordan Matthews, 16.7. I don't know what was. I didn't see many turnovers. Sam Bradford didn't throw an interception. Okay, they did lose 2 fumbles, so that probably is the reason why they lost. But looking at those passing numbers, but the 13 incompletions, so it's very confusing looking at the stats and looking at the score of this game, I gotta say. Only had 1 sack. Now we move to Washington. Kirk Cousins, 31 of 46, 290 yards, 1 touchdown. Alfred Morris, 17 for 62 on the ground. Chris Thompson, 6 for 53. Matt Jones, finding out how the NFL is, 7 for 11, 1.6. They lost, so they're only +1 in the turnover department. So I don't know what Philadelphia was struggling so much with yesterday, considering the way they were throwing the ball. I guess it was just all the incompletion. Oh, here we go. 5 sacks for Washington. So that was most likely the difference there. Knew there had to be something going on in those statistics. So seeing things, a lot of people are calling for the firing of Chip Kelly. That's obviously not surprising, especially in Philadelphia. But nowadays it doesn't matter. People love the NFL so much, so probably string Chip Kelly up and they had a chance. Any team start losing, well, they can't handle it nowadays. So we'll see how it goes. Washington, how impressive are they? They, beat St. Louis. St. Louis had the win yesterday. We'll go into them later. But an inconsistent team. They played poorly against Washington. They beat a Philly team that doesn't look like it can do anything right at this point. So they're 2-2. They're tied with the Giants and the Cowboys on top of that division. So hey, a win's a win. We'll take it and move on and see what happens from this point forward with the Redskins. But Kirk Cousins, 31 of 46 wasn't great, but obviously the team wants to play for this guy, which is not how it was with Robert Griffin III. The Chicago Bears getting their first win against the Oakland Raiders. Game went almost as I thought until Chicago crushed me with that late field goal yesterday. Derek Carr, 20 of 33. Again, we'll go and back into this. We talked about Oakland. This is a very telling game. Could you win a game on the road against a winless team? They could not. Derek Carr, 20 of 33, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Latavius Murray was only at 3.1 per carry of 16 for 49. He'd been running the ball very well. Receiving wise, Michael Crabtree, 5 for 80. Amari Cooper, 4 for 49, did have a very spectacular touchdown that was ruled incomplete at first and then overturned for a touchdown. So he continues to impress. Amari Cooper lost a fumble, so the turnovers were not good for them, and only 3 sacks. Charles Woodson did have a pick. Going to Chicago, Jay Cutler, 28 of 43, 281 yards, 2 touchdowns, and interception. Matt Forte, very good, 25 of, actually, no, not very good. 25 of 91 is only 3.6 per carry. Martellus Bennett was their leading receiver with 11 for 83, had a touchdown. Marquise Wilson, 6 for 80. Matt Forte out of the backfield, 4 for 64, so that's where his bread was buttered. They lost 2 fumbles, so the turnovers were on both sides of the ball. And that's where you get a late game field goal as it was. Oakland, hey, it's a tough loss. They're going to have to, again, I had Oakland in the playoffs. They just have to take it and move on, and we'll see where they go from here. Chicago to 1-3. I'm not expecting much from the Bears this year, but they do have to win some games eventually. And, Oakland, there's going to be a game later in the year that is going to be similar to this, or a game that they play against a very good team that they're going to have to win to make up for this. And if they want to be a playoff team, that's what you got to do. They're showing improvement. This is what I was really expecting from this team with Derek Carr, with Amari Cooper, with Michael Crabtree, and I still think Oakland's heading in the right direction. Atlanta against Houston. Boy, was I wrong about Houston this year. I was wrong about Atlanta, but I really expected more from Houston, especially their defense. The score was 48-21. Atlanta, very impressive, 4-0 now. I mean, they smacked around Houston yesterday. I guess Ryan Mallett got the start and got the hook. Brian Hoyer came in and went 17 of 30 for 232 and 2 touchdowns. Ryan Mallett 12 of 27. Obviously, Ryan Mallett is not the player I thought he was. But again, he wasn't taking many of the snaps with the first team in training camp, so I think that could have been the problem. But the biggest issue with Houston is obviously their defense. We'll go into that, but we'll go through the rest of the statistics for you. Chris Polk, the leading rusher, 3 for 27. Arian Foster was back, but only had 8 carries for 10 yards. DeAndre Hopkins is really putting up good numbers this year. Probably a fantasy football guy's favorite player. I don't play fantasy, so I don't really look into that. But if your team's 1-3, I don't really care what your fantasy statistics are. Excuse me. Cecil Shorts, man, getting a lot of S's there. Was 6 for 87. Had a touchdown. They lost 3 fumbles. J.J. Watt had a sack. They had 2 sacks total. They're just not getting the pressure on the quarterback I expected this year with that vaunted pass rush. We go to Atlanta. Matt Ryan, 19 to 27, 256 yards for a touchdown. Rushing Teron Ward, 19 for 72, 1 touchdown. Devontae Freeman, who had a big game last week against the Cowboys, 14 carries for 68 yards, just under 5 yards per carry and 3 touchdowns. He's playing very well this year. Leonard Hankerson, their top receiver, 6 for 103. Leonard Hankerson's an interesting guy. Was a tight end at Miami. The University of Miami, the U, not Miami Dolphins. So a big guy. He's been listed as a wide receiver in the NFL, but he's a big guy in a tough matchup. So he's been putting up some nice numbers this year. We'll continue to watch and see how he develops. Devontae Freeman out of the backfield, 5 for 81. Did not lose a fumble. So they had no turnovers. Only had 1 sack, but they only gave up 2 on the other end. So their offensive line is clearly playing well. The way they're running the ball and not giving up many sacks. So Atlanta's 4-0. They're looking very good. And Houston, back to the drawing board. Obviously, there's going to be some questions with quarterback now. Do you go back to Brian Hoyer? I can't say that that's the worst thing to do, even though I was in favor of Ryan Mallett at the start of the year. He's just not getting the job done. But again, Houston's defense, I really expect more from, and they're just not delivering this year. And that's why they're 1-3. Cincinnati, another 4-0 team. I was obviously wrong about them as well. They're playing very well this year, but we always knew the regular season was not the problem. For the Chiefs, Alex Smith, 31 of 45, 386. No touchdowns, no interceptions. Jamal Charles continues to put up very healthy yards per rush average. He had 11 carries for 75 yards, which is 6.8. Jeremy Maclin had a big day through the air, 11 for 148. Jamal Charles out of the backfield, 6 catches for 70 yards. So Jamal Charles has been playing very well for a Kansas City team that I don't know what is going on with them. Their offense hasn't been clicking. They finally stopped really turning the ball over. Travis Kelce did lose the fumble, but we'll check when we get to Cincinnati how their defensive line did. Kansas City did not have any sacks. So going to Cincinnati, we'll see if they had Alex Smith under pressure. Andy Dalton, we'll go to the offensive stats first. 17 of 24, 1 touchdown. Giovanni Bernard, 13 for 62. That's almost 5 yards per carry. Mohamed Sanu, 4 for 84, 21 yards per carry. AJ Green, 7 for 82. And Tyler Eifert, 3 for 69. Brandon Tate had a 55-yard touchdown. So they obviously are throwing the ball well. Andy Dalton, you have to consider him for MVP. He's playing well. You know, you can't look at the guy's past postseason failures when you're judging this season's MVP. So now going to their defense, that the defensive line had 5 sacks. Michael Johnson had 1 of them. Geno Atkins had 1, and Domata Peko had 2, and Carlos Dunlap 1. So we talked about how good that defensive line is, and they showed it yesterday. It's obviously where they made the difference in this game, because the Chiefs were putting up pretty good numbers offensively. So the 5 sacks is what killed them. Cincinnati, again, I didn't think they were devoid of talent, so it doesn't surprise me necessarily that they're 4-0. I figure that eventually things, come back to earth a little bit, and they might have been tuning Marvin Lewis out. But here they are at 4-0, so they certainly have the talent to compete. We know that. we'll see what happens to them when they get to the playoffs. Browns and the Chargers. San Diego got the win at home in this game. Josh McCown got the start, 32 of 41, played well, 356, 2 touchdowns. Isaiah Crowell running the ball, 12 for 63, 5.2 per carry. Duke Johnson Jr., who's a running back, was their top receiver, 9 for 65. Travis Benjamin is quietly having a good year, 6 for 79. And Gary Barnidge, 6 for 75 and a touchdown. Those are the receiving numbers. Did lose a fumble. Had 2 sacks, so Justin Gilbert had a good day. Their rookie pick. The cornerback had a good day returning kicks. Obviously not a good day defending because San Diego had 30 points. Phillip Rivers 23 of 38, 358 yards, 3 touchdowns. Danny Woodhead 8 for 54 rushing. Melvin Gordon 12 for 38. Melvin Gordon hasn't been as impressive as I thought this year. Receiving wise, Phillip Rivers was distributing the ball very nicely. Dontrell Inman 3 for 88. Danny Woodhead out of the backfield 4 for 84. Keenan Allen, one of those big targets we talk about with San Diego, 4 for 72. With Darius Green 4 for 53. Stevie Johnson 4 for 32. So Phillip Rivers was clearly clicking on all cylinders last night. Did not have any turnovers and had 4 sacks. So Cleveland, not a very good team. I figured they'd be a little better than this, but I had them as a last place team. San Diego trying to keep up in that division. They have Denver, who's 4-0 now, and Oakland, they are 2-2. San Diego and Oakland are both 2-2. So they'll move forward, but trying to keep pace. Hard to know with San Diego because Cleveland's not the best of teams. So you're winning a close game against Cleveland. You got to be better than that if you have serious playoff aspirations. Packers and the 49ers. Packers won the game 17-3. I thought they would put up a lot more points. The defense is making their improvements. Obviously, the San Francisco's defense, because I thought Aaron Rodgers would be running the secondary ragged. Where obviously San Francisco's offense is the problem. We'll go into that. We'll first give you Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers 22 of 32, 224 and a touchdown. Eddie Lacy running the ball 18 carries for 90 yards. Aaron Rodgers distributing as expected. James Jones 5 receptions, 98 yards. Richard Rodgers 5 receptions, 45 yards. Randall Cobb 5 receptions, 44 yards. Ty Montgomery 3 receptions for 15 yards. So that's what Aaron Rodgers does. He spreads guys out. And he throws the ball a lot. On the defensive side, let's just see if they had no fumbles. Defensively, 6 sacks, and Sam Seals had an interception. So let's look at Colin Kaepernick. 13-25, 160 yards and an interception. Now, that's pretty good considering how poorly he's been playing. So it shows how poorly you're playing when 13-25 from 160, no touchdowns and interceptions, one of your better games. Ran the ball 10 carries for 57 yards. Torrey Smith was their top receiver, 2 for 54. San Francisco's offense just doesn't have it this year. Carlos Hyde was only 8 carries for 20 yards, so they're clearly missing Frank Gore. It's obviously more important to this team than he ever, I wouldn't say ever got credit for, but you didn't know much about it here on the East Coast considering they're playing out on the West Coast. So San Francisco is now 1-3. They've lost 3 straight since their opener. Luckily, their bright side is their defense played well. Their secondary, which has been getting torched, is shaping up. So they're going to look to figure out their offense and really solve it. Colin Kaepernick is obviously looking more and more like a guy who just took the league by storm and wasn't figured out at first. Once he got figured out, he doesn't really have the answers, it appears. St. Louis getting the win against Arizona. A little surprised by that one. St. Louis, again, very up and down this year. Wild ride with this team. Nick Foles, 16-24, 171 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's not putting up great numbers. Again, he's just basically this entire team, the St. Louis team this year. They're just Jekyll and Hyde act from week to week. Todd Gurley, very impressive, 19 for 146. It looks like he's getting his knee healthy and he can really make some noise in the offensive rookie of the year if that's the case. Tavon Austin, 2 carries for 20 yards. Receiving, Tavon Austin, 6 for 96. Stedman Bailey, 2 receptions for 30 yards. They lost 2 fumbles. They had 4 sacks, and Janoris Jenkins had an interception. We said he would have to play well with the way Arizona's pass offense has been operating. And Janoris Jenkins came up with an interception, so he answered the bell. Carson Palmer, 29 of 46, 352, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, so they're still throwing the ball well. Chris Johnson showing more and more that he just wasn't getting the ball enough last year in New York. 16 carries, 83 yards. That's 5.2 yards per carry. Expect Chris Johnson to put up another good season this year and really bounce back from that last year. Larry Fitzgerald, 7 for 99. Good, but not spectacular. So, again, Janoris Jenkins played well. John Brown, 7 for 75. They lost 2 fumbles and 1 interception. So, Arizona got beat in the turnover department. Defensively, only had 1 sack. And that was a split sack. 2 guys got a half sack. So, no interceptions. Looks like Patrick Peterson played pretty well. There was nothing spectacular for St. Louis as far as their passing game, so Patrick Peterson was on it. Hey, Arizona isn't going to win every game. It's a loss. We're going to see what happens with St. Louis continuing going forward in this season. Again, the Jekyll and Hyde, just 1 week to the next. You don't know what you're going to get. They beat good teams, lose the bad teams, so it is what it is. But they're right there in the division at 2-2. The Vikings and the Broncos. Game went just about as I suspected. I thought Minnesota was going to be close. I did pick Denver to win. I said I might regret it. I actually had a feeling I was going to regret it. You would have loved to see the Vikings win this game. As a Vikings fan, obviously you want to see them win every game, but the Vikings won this. You're looking at a team that is really stepping into its own and finding a way to, become that winning team that's going to be on the cusp of the playoffs, as I suspected. Looks like they took the shackles off Teddy Bridgewater a bit, 27 of 41, 269 yards and a touchdown. Adrian Peterson, 16 for 81, 5.1 yards per carry, had a touchdown. Teddy Bridgewater, 3 rushes for 23 yards. Stephon Diggs was their leading receiver, 6 for 87. Mike Wallace, 8 for 83. You're expecting a little more from Mike Wallace. He's been solid, but he hasn't been great this year, and he's supposed to be a #1 wide receiver. I mean, he is on this team, but he's clearly in that next level, the secondary level, not up there in the top tier. The Julio Joneses, AJ Greens, Des Bryant's when he's healthy, Odell Beckham Jr. types. They had 2 sacks. Did have 2 interceptions. Lost the fumble. So, I'm sorry. Phone does not want to cooperate today, folks. Sorry about that. Denver. Peyton Manning again, pedestrian, 17 to 27, 1 touchdown for 2 interceptions. They did run the ball well. Ronnie Hillman, 11 for 103. C.J. Anderson, 11 for 43. Altogether, 24 for 144. So Peyton Manning didn't need to throw the ball that great because they were running well. Demaryius Thomas, 9 receptions for 93 yards. He's a guy who's in the top tier of wide receivers. I didn't mean to sell him short. I'm sorry I neglected to mention him, but Demaryius Thomas is there. Antonio Brown as well, but sorry, I just don't want to forget anybody. But we'll get back to the game here. Emmanuel Sanders, 3 receptions, 68 yards. They did have that 1 fumble recovery. T.J. Ward, their safety, had 2 sacks. They had 7 total. And of course, the one at the end of the game that forced the fumble on Teddy Bridgewater to seal it up. So they lost the turnover battle, but they won. Minnesota, hey, you got to keep moving forward. It's obviously been tough. after, or they've been playing well, but it's tough to make up for that loss against San Francisco in Week 1. So you're gonna have this. They got to move forward and figure it out. But they showed character on the road. But again, this is I had them at 9-7 going into the year, just on the outside of the playoffs going in, and this is the type of loss that keeps them outside of the playoffs. And then the final game was the night game, the Cowboys and the Saints. The Saints won in overtime, 26-20. A lot is going to be made about Brandon Weeden. To me, this shows that ESPN and other sport networks are just more interested in getting a story out that's popular and giving you the truth. Brandon Weeden was not the problem yesterday. Brandon Weeden was 16-26, 246 yards for a touchdown. Didn't have any mistakes. The problem. Well, we'll go into the problems that I think they are. But we'll give you the rest of the stats. Lance Dunbar 3 for 54. Looks like he's out for the season. Hurt himself on a kick return, so the injuries are just killing the Cowboys this year. Darren McFadden 10 for 31. Joseph Randle 11 for 26. Christine Michael came in the game and one carry for -1 yard on the third down. I mean, altogether 28 of 115. But you look at how they're dispersing the running game. We'll go into that. Receptions. Bryce Butler had a big one. Cole Beasley was 6 for 62. Jason Witten 4 for 57. Terrence Williams did have that game-tying touchdown, was 3 for 49. He's not getting open enough though. He has to step up. Is he just a guy who was, riding in the dust of Des Bryant and cleaning up all the garbage that was left over from him drawing so much attention? Cowboys did have 3 sacks, so they were starting to get pressure on the quarterback. We'll go to New Orleans. Drew Brees, obviously his shoulder was hurting him. He really wasn't zipping it downfield. That 80-yard touchdown, most of that was catch and run. The touchdown to win the game. 33 of 41, 359 yards. Mark Ingram running the ball 17-77. Kyrie Robinson 6-16. C.J. Spiller had that game-winning 80-yard touchdown. Was their top receiver at 5 for 99, but take off 80 yards, and that obviously doesn't look as great as it was. Willie Snead had a good game, 6 for 89. No turnovers on either side of the ball. They had 3 sacks as well. Again, we talked about this game for the Cowboys. I didn't see New Orleans going 0-4. Some way, somehow, they were going to get this win. Now, again, with the Cowboys, first we want to make the comment that I was seeing comments today that after they had scored the touchdown that they eventually tied it with, that he should go for 2. Jason Garrett should go for 2. Now, I love the going for 2. I don't like playing for overtime. I like playing for the win. There was a minute 51 and 3 timeouts left on the clock, however. There was 15 seconds left on the clock. Yes, I'm going for 2. With a minute 51 and 3 timeouts, you're playing to get the ball back. So I didn't have a problem with it in that regard. Again, though, it's Scott Linehan and Rob Marinelli are just becoming too predictable with their play calls. Rob Marinelli has got to start blitzing if he's not getting pressure. The defense is playing well. The run defense was very good. So that's how that went in that regard. That big play at the end, clearly a miscommunication. You saw the linebackers coming off the field, and that was the linebacker who got beat, the rookie. Sean Lee is a guy, again, he's going to be in his familiar spot, the sideline, from this point forward. But the Cowboys, we saw it. They ran the ball. They were over 4 yards per carry. A lot of that was the Lance Dunbar big run. But, 10 for McFadden, 11 for Joseph Randle. Pick a guy and use him, and then have another guy spell him. Don't, keep going back and forth. I don't like it. They love those stretch running plays, and they just run it to death. The teams are going to adjust to that. A stretch running play is a good run, play when it's a change of pace. It is not good for a staple because you're stretching a guy out and you're allowing defenses to run into those lanes. If you keep running those stretch run plays as your bread and butter, teams are easily going to figure that out and they're just going to start shooting the gaps. I'd like to see the Cowboys get into a more downhill style of running, and I think that's what will help them. And Rob Marinelli, again, I'd like to see him bring more blitzes. There was a couple plays yesterday. There was a time in the red zone, Scott Linehan called a fade to Terrence Williams left and a fade to Terrence Williams right from the 10-yard line. They let those fades when Des Bryant is on the field inside the 5 and you're not throwing the ball that far. even the last drive when they got the touchdown, they tried the same play twice. They tried Terrence Williams left, Terrence Williams right, and a play before, or I don't know if it was the play directly before or a few plays earlier. They tried Terrence Williams down the sideline, and it didn't work. So it's just bad play calling in general. Where do the Cowboys go from here? Hey, they got New England coming in, doesn't look good, but they're gonna fall into a couple wins here again. It was the law of averages they were playing against tonight, and it's just gonna go back for one of those. They're gonna have to get another game some point down the season. So uh, New Orleans now 1-3. They are on life support in that division with Carolina and Atlanta at 4-0, but they'll move forward. They had to get a win. They're too good of a team to be 0-4. So that's it from the recap of yesterday. And stay tuned. We'll also give you a preview of tonight's game between the Seattle Seahawks and the Detroit Lions. So that's coming up. Tomorrow we'll give you some of the baseball games because we got the playoffs coming. So we'll go into baseball, give you some of that, and talk about where we think that's going to go. So stay tuned for tonight's Monday night game and enjoy the rest of your day.